Hello YouTube, it is mid-April in Ohio. I'm a little behind on getting my boat ready, so this video is going to be a how to de-winterize your bass boat. I have a Nitro 640 LX, it's probably about 15 years old. Also want to give a shout out, thanks to Adventures in Bass Fishing, the TK Heaven, for hooking me up with this shirt. Check out the back. So with that said, we're going to get right to it, so stay tuned. While I'm backing my truck up, I want to give you a little bit of background for the 2020 fishing season. By no means am I an expert when it comes to maintenance on boats. However, I do feel that I'm pretty squared away when it comes to my boat, because over the last 3 years I have fixed just about everything you could possibly fix on it. So what I'm doing right now, and I'm going to show you guys, is something that I've learned just from trial and error and watching other YouTube videos. So enjoy the video, and thanks for watching, and hit the thumbs up at the end if you liked it. So I already put the batteries in the boat. I store those in the basement in the winter so they don't freeze in the garage. And I trickle charged them before I stored them, so we'll see if they still got some juice left. They should. And the tools that I need shouldn't be that much. Ratchet, spark plug, removers, I think that's it. First time for this hitch on this truck, because my truck, my other truck got totaled. I use a locking bolt on this for two reasons. So no one steals this while I'm not towing the boat, and so no one steals my trailer when I'm in the water. First thing's done. Another lock. Now I'm secure when I go to the boat ramps, so no one will steal the trailer while I'm out on the water. The batteries are hooked up. That's probably the hardest part of the job, in my opinion, because they weigh so much, and it's a trick to get them back into the rear bay of the boat. So those are hooked up. I need to lift the motor up. Hopefully that works. So that's the first thing I'm going to do to start this process. So I got to get my keys. Got the keys. And let's see if it works. Okay, that works. which means my batteries still have some juice. Now that I got the motor up a little bit, I'm going to pull the boat forward in the garage so I can get behind it to work. I'm not going to pull it all the way out in the garage because it's cold outside and it's windy, and I'm trying to grab on the camera the process so you guys can see it. So, time to move the truck forward. I'll be back. Oh yeah, now I got some room to work back here. So I'm going to drop this back down to level it off. And then start tearing it apart. This is what I used to fog the motor before I stored it. These are the old plugs. It says old from 19 on them. And these are new plugs, and the Amazon guys here. Alright, I'm going to pull the cowl off the motor to see what's inside and then go from there. Alright, that's the bad boy on the inside. If anyone's never seen one of these before from the inside, what's interesting too is the cowl's got a rope in there and probably some instructions. My guess is that's in case of like an emergency situation, the pull started. So 3 spark plugs, and let's see what I made notes for when I stored it. Notes as of October 31st, 2019. Pitch old plugs in motor and spring. Get good gas. Use some fuel stabilizer, so I must have put fuel stabilizer in it. I know I did before I stored it and ran it a little bit. Change lower oil in spring, put in new plugs, burn out oil in motor, boats loose. Okay, the boats on the air filter are loose on pistons. So what this means is I fogged this motor last year at the end of the year, which there's videos you can watch on how to do that. But basically you run the motor in your garage or your driveway. As you're running it, you spray this into the cylinder ports and it'll create a fog, actually, a smoke. Once it starts smoking the motor, that means that you know that you fogged it properly, and then you zip everything back up. I also spray some of this in the spark plug reservoirs when they're off, just to get like a filmy grease inside the motor so that nothing rusts or freezes over the winter time. Now in the springtime, which we're at now, I gotta burn that old stuff out. Some guys you'll see at the lake, like in the spring, and they're smoking real bad. Their motors are smoking, and that's because they take it out on the water and do it. But I do mine in the garage. Alright, this is another view of the inside of the motor with some light, just so you can see everything better. If you've never seen inside of a Tracker 60 horse, it's a Mercury motor. See the 3 spark plugs right there. And then that's the opposite side. Throttle cables, is the oil reservoir, obviously. I don't know what any of this other stuff is. That looks like a starter right there. So I haven't had any issues with it. I actually flushed this water port line right here last year. I don't know if you can see me pointing to it, which had a bunch of sand and stuff in it. So that's a quick shot of the motor. This is the, I don't know what they call these things, earmuffs that I'm going to hook up to my garden hose. If you've never had a boat motor before, these are water cooled, just like your car engine, but there's no radiator. So it pulls water, pumps water from the lake that you're in through the motor to cool it. So if you're not in the water, you can't run your boat motor because there's no water being pumped in it. That's why you got to hook it up to one of these things, where you'll see guys that have it in a pail or a big bucket of water. So never run your boat motor dry. My second tip, and I am no expert by no means, but I learned all this stuff, is when you store your motor in the wintertime, in cold weather, you have to store it in the down position. If you store it when it's tilted up, which is how you trailer it, the water won't run out of the lower unit. So if you store it in the wintertime and it's tilted up, that water that doesn't run out will freeze, and it can actually crack your lower unit down here. So that's an important thing, because if you ever have seen any videos on YouTube where guys crack their lower units, and it's an expensive repair, so you might as well store it right so you don't have that issue in the wintertime. Some other folks say that you're also supposed to change your lower unit oil before you store it, or drain it in the wintertime, because if there's water in the oil, that can expand and crack it too. But I actually checked mine at the end of last year, and the oil was nice and firm with no water in it, so I didn't change it before the end of last season. I don't know if I'm going to change it this season either. It's a pain in the butt. So I'm going to go ahead and hook these up. All right. These get placed over these water ports. Real simple. That's it. So when you run your water through here, when you turn your hose on, it's just like being in the lake. It's going to be pumping water in, actually pumping water in, and the motor is going to be sucking it at the same time to keep the actual motor cool. I got some oil in there. Have to check that out. So I'm going to use the old plugs that are in here to burn this stuff out, and then put some new plugs in. Another tip too for this boat, and I'll walk you around. Last year I was doing this, and I started hearing some buzzing, and it was coming up in the dash area, and I flipped out. And what it was my motor was overheating. I was running it too long, and there's a buzzer in the ignition switch over here that starts buzzing, that lets you know that you're running hot. It's never ran hot while I was on the water, so I kind of flipped out, and I did a little research and figured out that's what it was. So when you're doing this kind of maintenance on your own, you don't want to be out here and let this thing run for, you know, a half an hour or an hour or anything like that. You want to fire it up, burn the gunk out, the winterization oil, and then zip it back up and run it hard when you get on the water, where it can be cooled properly. Tip of the day, right there. Flipped me out, man. And I flip out easily. Ask my friends. All right, getting close. I think I tightened these last year. Yeah, they're tight. These are the old plugs. So I'm going to go turn the hose on and get some water in here and start making a mess. And then fire this bad boy up. That's working. Try to fire it up. In neutral. Choke. Choke is done by pushing the ignition. Choke. Forgot to pump this thing here. Gas in it. Oh yeah. There we go. Come on, baby. There we go. First start is always the roughest one. So the smoke was the defogging of the winterization fogging spray, and you wanted to see smoke. And I would let it run until the smoke burned out, and now it's running clean. And I got real good cooling, I don't know if that's what it's called, cooling pump pressure that's pushing through that line up here. That was plugged last year. It was just barely trickling out. Another tip for you do-it-yourselfers, that was easy to unplug. There's a small hole down in the lower unit that water gets sucked into for your speedometer. And if you go into the mud or hit some seaweed or something like that, vegetation, sometimes that can get plugged up too and your speedometer don't work. So if you take a drill bit, not hooked up to your drill, but the diameter of the drill bit, that you can get inside that hole and just push it in and out a little bit to clean that junk out, then your speedometer will work again. That's the fogging oil. I'm gonna clean that up.
A lot of work for this shot. Camera work. That, my friends, is the dog that barks nonstop across the street. And it sounds like he was a truck driver that smoked 5,000 packs of cigarettes a day. 20.
Another tip about this motor is this is the oil, and you don't have to mix gas and oil with this motor. It does it itself. But last year I was getting oil up in this area when the motor was tilted, and I couldn't figure out why. And it was flipping me out. Well, here there's a seal in here, and it was kinked. So when you tighten down this oil lid, you can over tighten it and kink that seal. So I'm going to try to take this off, but I can't, just still running because it's a bear to get off too. There we go. I probably need to buy a new one because whoever had it before me used vice grips on it and screwed up the cap head. You can see the marks on it. Anyways, this rubber gasket right here, if you over tighten it, it'll screw up the seal, and then oil will leak down into here. So if you're getting oil in the back in that spot, only when the motor's tilted up, it's because that's leaking. This is the oil I use. It's actually the only oil that I can find at the parts store. Pennzoil Marine 2-cycle. So I really don't need to put that much in here, but I'm going to put a little bit in here just to top it off. There's actually a little flow line there that's, or a gauge that shows how much oil's in it. You can't really see it when the cow's on because the cow's dirty. Maybe I should clean that off. That's what I'll do next. Actually, I'm gonna do something that's totally amazing. I'm gonna pull this tape off. Okay, last thing on here is this air box. It doesn't have an air filter, which kind of flipped me out, but it's got 4 screws that keeps it on. So I'm going to pull that off just to be safe. Make sure I got all the oil cleaned out of it. And my notes said I didn't tighten these, so they're still loose. I just know putting this thing back on is not easy because there's a bunch of seals, three rubber seals. You'll see in a second. See if I can get this off without all the screws popping off. There we go. Yep, there goes the screws. So those are the cylinders that I sprayed all the fogging into. And then these rubber seals go where that box butts up to it. And this is the air box, and there's no like filter inside of it. It's just where you pull air from. So now comes the hard part. I'm going to wipe off the excess oil and then put this thing back together. Comedy Central up in this business.
Please line up when we go in to go in. But you gotta hit them right. Here's one. Nice, there we go. Upward angle.
Thanks for watching.